Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of To Be Seen, a space where stories become mirrors and conversation becomes a way home to yourself. I'm your host, Kamsi, and as always, I'm excited to have you on another episode of this podcast. So, right around now, when I'm recording this episode, I don't know where you're going to see this yet, but I'm recording this is few days into the new year. And I don't know about you, but I think it's the same for most people. I've been in a very sober and reflective state. There's something about the end of the year and the beginning of a new year that just makes you think about your life. Like you're just like, wow, what a life that you've lived, right? And I've just been reflecting a whole lot. And I was thinking about what I wanted to speak about on this solo episode. And I actually had something in mind that I wanted to speak about initially. I already planned that I was going to talk about this. And then as I was about to just step on stage, I had a different idea or a different conviction about another thing I want to speak on. So this is in no way prepared, and I'm going to speak from the heart, but I just know I've come to learn that inner conviction, that feeling of talk about this, and I know it's going to flow as it should. And so today's episode is going to be focused on when you are ready to change your life but don't know where to start. Let's take that in for a second. So if you're watching this episode and you feel maybe it's a new season for you, or maybe you are in a crossroads in your life, or you are trying to start something new and you find that you're lacking in, whether it's discipline or consistency, or you're at a place where you're at a crossroads in your career and you don't know what's next, or you want to start a business but you don't have the confidence to do that. These types of crossroads, right? And it could even be something where you've gotten to a relative success in your life and you're like, there's so much more that you're being called to, but you are not quite sure where to go from there. That is what this episode is going to be about, right? Because I have definitely been at that place. I have been at that place at different points in my life, right? And very, very significantly, I think the most significant turning point moment that I experienced in my life was around 2020. So I think from 2020 to, okay, now this is early 2026 that I'm recording this, that's a 6 year time period. My life I've experienced a 360 in my life in every way. In every single way that you can think about, my life has completely changed, right? I'm talking financially, clarity wise, relationally, confidence wise, just fulfillment wise, everything, right? Just everything, right? And I think it's very interesting because if I think back at, say, for example, 2020 was like a beginning of like a cycle. When I think back at that period, I was reflecting recently just about like what has changed in my life and where it's all started from. And there's so many lessons that I've picked up along the way on this journey of, will I say, transforming my own life, because, a lot of personal inner transformation and also external transformation in my life. And where it all started and the lessons that I've picked up along the way, I want to share with you. I want to share with you so many things that I've learned about what it takes to change your life, and both mindset wise and just generally from my own experience, right? So stay with me. Stay with me. This is going to be an episode full of gems, I believe, right? So yeah. And I would say the first thing that I can remember so vividly, that was one of the first indicators that, okay, Kamsi, this is the time to change your life, was that I was tired. I'd reached a place in my life where I don't want to call it rock bottom, but, well, I mean, it was something close to that, right? I wouldn't say it was rock bottom completely, but it was definitely something close to that, where I just felt like, you know what, like I am tired of what my life currently is. I felt like I was living below what I believed I was capable of. I felt that I was not fulfilled. I felt that I was not completely happy with the choices that I was making in my life and what the life that I was living currently. I felt like as if I was betraying myself. I felt as if I was self-sabotaging myself in lots of ways, but I felt also kind of stuck. I didn't really know, when you're like, maybe for example, you've just been taking different turns. I'm one of those people that I'm very geographically challenged. I never know the way to anyway. Anyway, even if I've been there like 10 times, it's just, I don't want to say it's just me, but unfortunately, this has been me for the past how many years, so it's just me. So, but you imagine you're just taking different turns, or you're going on a journey, you're just taking different turns, and you just wake up one, or maybe you just realize at some point that, wait, where am I? Where am I? And you don't even know how to get back to where you are coming from because you don't even know how you got there. That was how I felt. I felt as if I had been living my life on autopilot for the last couple of years when it came to like my career, when it came to living intentionally. I just did go. I was just moving, right? And I was not necessarily taking stock of where I was going to and what I wanted for myself and what I wanted for my life. I just know that I was dissatisfied with my life. And it's one of the reasons why I have a very beautiful relationship with discomfort, right? It sounds ironic, but most of the times when I've changed my life in one way or the other, it started from feeling completely uncomfortable. Discomfort, right? When your comfort zone no longer becomes comfortable for you and you're like, you know what, I need to get out of this place, right? And I got to that place in 2020 in my own personal journey. I was uncomfortable with the skin I was in. And I don't mean that from a physical perspective, but I mean that from a mental perspective. The life that I was living, I was uncomfortable with it. I was at that point in a job that I did not like, right? I did not like. I also felt like I was being underutilizing my own skill and potential in that job. I felt like as if I was not disciplining myself. I was not committed to anything. I just felt like as if I was just going with the vibes and going with the flow of whatever I thought. And I also realized that from a place of identity, I was thinking myself so small, so inconsequential, so whatever. I just felt like I didn't really know. And this was 2 years after I graduated from university. Just to provide some context, I graduated at the beginning of 2018 rather. And so, of course, everyone knows that when you first graduate from school, you first see shege first. You first just be so confused. Like it feels as if you're just like floundering. You don't know where to go, right? So I definitely experienced that, right? But this was 2 years in, and I felt like, okay, I mean, I know that this life is not like, okay, one day you figure out everything, but I just felt like as if I was not making any progress. Like I was in a job. I didn't really see the progress I was making in my life. I felt like as if like I couldn't really, like even in terms of like my routines, I was like, what am I doing? What am I spending my day doing? Okay, I'm using my phone. And then when I go to work, I come back, I use my phone. I watch things on I just felt like there was so much more to me. And I was just tired of existing in the way that I was. So the first step, I would say, not first step really, but one of the first things that was a telltale sign that I was ready to change my life was because I was uncomfortable with the life that I was living. I was uncomfortable with the life that I was living. And then I was like, you know what? I need to make a change, right? And then, of course, at that point, making a change, I didn't even know what I looked like. What comes next? Okay, I want to make a change. What do I do? I didn't know where to start from. And I think one of the good things I would say about that COVID year was that one thing we did have was time. What a time, guys. What a time. What a time. Never again, but what a time. We just had so much time, so much free time. I had so much free time because obviously I was still working at some points, but I was working from home. Honestly, like my work was super, super, super like low stakes at that time. I was barely doing anything. So I had just a lot of free time. And initially my free time, I was just like, oh my gosh, free time. I don't have to go to the office. I don't have to, at that time, like I would have to wake up in the morning and take bus to go to the to my office at the time, or all of that from where I lived, and I just like, oh my gosh, I don't have to go through all the Lagos stress. Anybody that lives in Lagos knows that. Hey, God, what a just anything that has to do with public transport is just extremely exhausting. So at that time, initially when I first started, I was just like not doing anything, not just chilling, watching shows, watching movies, all of that. And then at some point, I was just like, wait a second. I reached a crash out moment when I was just like, wait, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my life? I don't even remember exactly what even just triggered that, but I just remember like a sense of deep dissatisfaction, waking up in my days. And then when we now had to start going back to work, right? It was, the roads were freer, but I still had to go into work, go back. I was like, I'm working a job that I don't like. What am I doing in my life? What's my plan? What do I need to do? What needs to happen? Right? And so from there, I started trying to figure out like, okay, what do I need to do? And I remember then I started getting into reading books particularly about like personal development, because I felt like I could tell that there was a gap between my mindset and the kind of mindset that I needed to have to change my life. And so I wanted to just consume things that would help me, right? And I remember I would follow a couple of people on Instagram at the time that would recommend books, would share things like maybe, for example, quotes. And then that time, oh my God, I have so many quotes on my phone. Quotes cannot change your life, Sha, but I used to have collect these quotes, because collecting quotables. And then I just knew that there was just a desire for me to change my life. And, shout out to God, because I also was praying, like just praying to God about like, God, I'm confused right now. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I know that in different ways he was putting things in front of me to help me in this evolution, right? And so at some points, I got into just reading and like, podcasts, all of that. And I remember reading or listening to a particular podcast. It was by Brianna Weiss at the time. She's a writer. And it was on The Mountain Is You. And this particular podcast was talking about self-sabotage and how sometimes like we do not do the things that we want to do because we don't really, really, really want to do those things. We say we want to do them, but everything about our lives is proof or is fruit that we don't actually want to do those things, right? And I remember just for the first time I was like, wow, this puts language to what I'm going through right now. Like, I want to change my life. I want to do better. I want to be more hardworking. I want to work in a job that I'm proud of. I want to be putting more effort into my life, everything. But I don't know where to start, and I'm also not doing that thing. I said that, for example, like I'll go through a period of time where I'm like, okay, I want to be disciplined. I want to start doing courses and all of that, and then I'll fall by the wayside again. And I'm like, okay, wait, do you really want to do those things? And so when I was listening to that particular podcast, I'll never forget. And I'm someone that my memory is iffy about some certain things. So for me to remember that particular podcast, it was a turning point moment for me, because I remember listening to it and I'm just being like, wait a second. Something is not adding up, because what do you mean that you want to change your life, but you're moving as if like everything is fine and everything is Gucci? There's something that needs to give, right? And I remember one of the things that the podcast was saying was that, and I also started learning about self-sabotage. And one of the things the podcast was saying was that your new life will have to cost you your old one, right? It will cost you friendships, mindset, identities that you have actually outgrown, but you do not know that you have outgrown them. And so you're still living within that reality of your old life. That's one of the things I was saying. Another thing that stood out to me was that the reason why you self-sabotage is not necessarily because you hate yourself or you just feel like, oh, let me just self-sabotage my life. It happens a lot of times subconsciously. And what usually happens in those times is that you think that you want to change your life. You think that you want that particular thing, but there's a competing desire inside of your mind, inside of your conscious, that is waging war against that thing that you think you want. And so it comes off as excuses like, oh, procrastination, I'm lazy, I just don't feel like it. But the truth is that whatever is making you not do those things that you're supposed to do is something that you have either internalized, believed, maybe limiting beliefs that you have that you don't even recognize that you have, or even the fact that you are comfortable, something about your life is comfortable with where you are right now. It's your comfort zone, and so you're comfortable there. You don't realize you're comfortable there, but you're comfortable. You're afraid of the unknown. And I remember that it was a little exercise at the end of the podcast that said that write down everything you want your life to be or to become, right? And write down the reasons why you think that you don't want those things, right? Write down the reason why you think that you cannot get those things, right? And a lot of times, those thoughts actually exist in your subconscious. They never really pour out. And I just remember sitting down and I started writing. I was like, okay, Kamsi, you're a girl. At the time, I think I was like 23, or how old was I? I think I was like 22 or so. It was either 22 or 23 at the time, right? And then I started writing down like what exactly I wanted for myself and what exactly I felt like why I couldn't get those things. So for example, I wanted a better job. I wanted a well-paying job that felt fulfilling. I wanted to do things that I felt like I was challenged by, that I was proud of. And then what were the reasons why I didn't think I could do those things? I wrote down, in fact, like when I still have that journal entry to today, like maybe one of these days, if you guys want, like I can share snippets from it, just like let me know. But I started writing that I am afraid that, for example, that this life will make me uncomfortable. I'm afraid that I am going to have to do a lot of work that I'm not ready for. I'm afraid that I'm going to be, found out as not as smart as I think I am. I was afraid I was going to be seen. I didn't want to be to be seen. I was afraid of people judging me and criticizing me if I put myself out there. I was afraid. I just had so many fears that I started just writing down and pouring down. I started saying I was afraid I was incompetent, that I didn't really have what it takes. I was afraid that, I would start something that I'm not even able to finish. I just had so many fears, so many fears, so many fears. And then it made me realize after like even that whole self-sabotage, realization that I wasn't doing the things that I wanted to do, not because of I hated myself, but because I genuinely believed in those excuses. I genuinely believed in those excuses. And so me self-sabotaging myself was me trying to protect myself from a life that I was afraid of, but I didn't realize I was afraid of it. And so one of the first steps actually to unstitch yourself from self-sabotage is actually to understand the root causes of those things that you are doing or you're not doing. What are those root causes? What are those things? A lot of time what we look at and we focus on are symptoms as opposed to the root cause. The symptom is, for example, maybe you are lazy. Maybe you're indisciplined. Maybe you say you won't start something, you've been procrastinating it for 100 million years. But you just keep on changing your mind, procrastinating, but you just like this. This is a symptom. It's just a symptom. Like, for example, you have a cold, you are coughing. That's a symptom. What is the reason why you have a cold? Your immune system is compromised, for example. So there's something about your mental state or your mindset or your subconscious that is warring against the thing that you think you want. But it's manifesting itself as you being stuck. Right. So it's not always the thing that you're seeing, is what the reason behind it. And I remember I first of all had to unstitch myself from like, oh my gosh, these are these reasons that I think that I'm not being able to move forward, because I just feel like I don't feel like I'm actually even worthy of the life that I thought I wanted. I didn't think I was worthy of it. I genuinely did not think I was worthy of that life. I was so afraid of what I felt like it would take of me. I didn't think I had what it took, right? Because I was like, to be successful, like the amount of work, the amount of effort, the amount of visibility, the amount of this, like, do I really have it in me? And it sounds like this is a thought that is holding you back. You feel like, why would my brain even think such things? We don't realize where we pick up information from. Sometimes you pick up things from, maybe for example, you grew up in a family that you have never seen anybody succeed. You have never seen anybody even try to stretch themselves. You've always seen anybody just trying to just survive. You've never seen anybody thrive. That you don't even have the language for the fact that, I want to thrive. I want better for myself. To you, that's a luxury that other people have the capacity to have, but you don't have the capacity. And it doesn't have to even be on changing your life in that financial way. It can be on other things, but you just don't think that you have it in you to do those things. And so you've believed those untruths about yourself to the point where it's manifesting as you acting as though you want the life that you currently are living in. That is what self-sabotage literally means. Is you trying to protect yourself subconsciously because whatever desire you have is competing with an internal belief system that is actually not serving you, right? So how did I go from that place? I will not forget when I wrote down that whole journal, this thing, I wept. I cried so much because I was like, I felt like as if like I was seeing myself for the first time in from a place of compassion. I was like, wow, like I didn't even realize that this was something that I was even thinking about myself, right? And I remember, right, and I didn't journal this down, but I remember interrogating each of these fears, each of these things that I was so afraid of. I remember interrogating them, like one by one. I don't think I'm able to do this and everything like that, but I'm like, I'm actually the person that can do this. When I did this, I did that. So I remember things about myself that I'm like, okay, that, or for example, or I'll say that I don't want to put this out there because I don't want to be seen as cringe, but I'm like, but the people that do this, I don't think they're cringe. I actually don't think they're cringe. I started answering every single thing about myself that I was writing down, that I'm like, wait, they actually are illogical. They don't make sense. A lot of the things that we're actually afraid of a lot of times they're actually lies. We don't recognize them as lies because we have believed them too long that they become a long-standing belief system about ourselves. But then when you interrogate your fears on a very, very basal level, you're like, oh wow, like this does not actually make sense, because this is actually like, for example, now one of the things that I had written down was that I didn't think it required a lot of work. The life that I wanted required a lot of work. And I don't think I have it in me to do the work. And then I thought about it and I'm like, you that was my own personal example, you that was a first class student, that I've graduated with straight A's throughout university, you that had the best results in IGCSE in secondary school, you that did this when I was like, wait, you can put in the work if you need to put in the work. But you just have gotten so comfortable and familiar with the barest minimum that you don't remember how to put in the work. A lot of growth is remembering. A lot of growth is conditioning. A lot of growth comes from conditioning yourself to believe that you are more than what you currently see. A lot of growth comes from a place of identity first that now trickles into the behavioral patterns that now accompany growth. But you have to see yourself as someone that is actually able to live that life that you want to live, whatever that looks like. Whether that looks like a different job, financial growth, whether that looks like being able to, for example, be consistent with working out and eating better and changing your wellness, whether that looks like being someone who is more more happy and more content, like whatever that looks like, you have to first even allow yourself to see that it is possible for you. And I didn't realize that I wasn't seeing that. And so I started interrogating all those different things. And then I started realizing the lies that they were. I started replacing them with truths. Replacing them with truth by saying them, by believing them, even confronting them with the truth about what God says about me, the truth about what I know about myself, the truth about what I even believe that I can change about myself. Like, even if I have not seen it before, a lot of times, sometimes confidence is by evidence. When you don't see something, when you don't see yourself as able to do something because you don't have like the history, right? You just have to give yourself new evidence that that's possible for you. And so I started interrogating all of these different lies that I had been believing for 100,000 gazillion years. And I started giving myself new truths. And I'm like, no, I can do this because I'm someone who's able to do good work when I need to do it. I'm not afraid of being seen because at the end of the day, like, I am the light that I have will shine because it is who I am. So I thinking about like, okay, what my fear of being cringe, like the people that do this kind of things, are they cringe? Do I consider them cringe? No. So where does this idea come from that I'll look that if I sometimes I'll tell myself that, wait a second. Imagine myself that those things that I'm saying I cannot do. The people that are doing them, or the things that I think that I'm not able to do, I would not like myself doing. The people that are doing them, do I respect them? Yes. Do I resonate with them? Yes. Do I think them, whatever that looks like? Yes. A lot of the things that I thought that I couldn't be, I liked and I respected and I admired the people that wear those things. And so sometimes it also meant I had to almost like look outside of myself, because sometimes we're so close to ourselves that it becomes familiarity. We're like, but then I had to consider myself as like, wait a second, like if I was looking outside of myself, will I think that this is possible for Kamsi? And then answers were yes, like this is possible. I've seen other people that are doing these things. These people, to borrow Nigerian parents and Nigerian aunties' words, these people do not have two heads. I'm not going to lie, Nigerian parents slapped with that line because people actually do not have two heads. And so I have to remind yourself that, wait a second, these things that are possible for other people are also possible for me too. And so that sense of understanding, like that I was self-sabotaging myself because I actually did not believe that I could have those things. And I actually did not want them because I was feeding a different desire that was a limiting belief in my life, but then I had come to believe it subconsciously. I had to now start unpacking, unearthing the lies, unearthing the truths, opposing them, confronting them, telling new truths about myself, telling myself new stories, new narratives that were consistent with the kind of person that I wanted to be and the kind of life that I wanted to live. That was when it started. Genuinely, that's when it started. Like that work, that deep work, that, mind you, that no one can do that work but you. You have to get to a point where you're like, you know what, I'm sick of my own thing. I'm sick of my own excuses. And I'm like, I need to do something different for myself. And I got to that point and I started doing the work. And I was like, you know what, like I can do hard things. I'm going to do hard things. And I remember like we went from that to, I was like, you know what, like I'm always so afraid of putting myself out there because I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm an imposter. I don't want to put myself out there. And I went from doing that to being like, I'm going to apply for jobs that I don't even think I'm able to do. I'm going to apply for jobs that I don't even have the experience, the wisdom to do those jobs, because like I can actually do this. Like I know that I'm capable of doing this. I know I'm capable of living a life that is consistent with the person I believe that I can be. Even if I don't see that evidence right now, I can create the evidence by showing up as that person consistently and continue to grow, right? I knew I was smart. I knew that I was someone who was capable of doing big things. But somehow along the line, along life, different things, I had started accepting a smaller version of myself. Like I started accepting myself in small letters, right? And I wanted to remind myself what it looked like to live life as myself in caps lock, right? And I'm like, I need to live more, right? And with these things, right, clarity always comes along the way. Sometimes when we're trying to change our life, and that's another thing I wanted to talk about, we think that, okay, want to change my life, I'm ready to change my life. Okay, now I should immediately know, once I'm at that point, what exactly I need to do. I need to know the first step, the second step, the third step, the fourth. That is not how life works, my love. Like, that is not how life works. Life works like this. Sometimes you're going to have to open a door, right, before you think you're actually even worthy of opening that door. And you step into that door. and then you walk that path, and then imagine like a staircase. After each time you walk, like a staircase that goes up, for example, each time you walk up, take a little step forward, you are seeing where you are going to is becoming closer and closer. It's becoming clearer and clearer. That is how it works. You don't enter into I want you in my life and just be like, wait, I don't know what to do. You take the first step. You take the first viable step. The first step that makes sense. You use what is in your hand currently and you start like that. And I remember at that time, like one of the things I wanted to change my life in was in my career. Another thing was, for example, even my health. For example, I know that COVID year, I was sitting down. I became such a like a homebody. I added weight. I became so unfit. I started having to learn like new ways of like existing. I started working out. I started doing like jump rope, all of those different things. I started working. I started getting myself again, And then, but one of the biggest shift was definitely from a place of like my career, right? I remember at that time I was working a job that it was okay, like it was not bad, but I just knew that I didn't particularly even love what I was doing. I didn't particularly find it aligned to who I was and what I wanted to do, right? And then, and that's another thing about when you're about to change your life. You have to get very, very, very clear on what you want, right? You might not have the full picture, but you have to also believe that that full picture is impossible for you. When I started out my career journey, I genuinely did not think that you always hear things about like, oh, your work is your work, your work is your work, you work for money, you work for this. Like you can find out things that make you feel passionate. You're passionate about, but you're not going to be passionate about your work. Like you don't have passion about your work. And I believed that for a while until I realized that I'm the kind of person that work becomes such a big part of my life. And I'm not trying to say that it's supposed to be like my whole identity and essential. No, but it becomes a very, very big part of my life that I want to care about my work. I want to be passionate about it. So another thing that I would say here is that you have to believe that the life that you want for yourself is possible for you. I didn't really think that I could work a job then that I would actually like and actually would feel fulfilled by, right? And I had to change my mind about that. I had to change my mind about that. Like, I can actually be fulfilled by something that I'm doing. I can and I will be fulfilled by something I'm doing, by my work. I'll find fulfillment in my work, right? It will not be the only thing that'll fulfill me, but I would find fulfillment in it, right? I started looking for things and work and jobs that felt more aligned to who I was, the things that called out my creativity, that allowed me to use the skills that I believe that were unique to me and natural to me. I started looking out for that. I started reaching out to people, telling them, oh, I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for this. Before, I wouldn't have done that because I just felt like as if I have this very, very, I used to have this very, very first daughter syndrome. I wouldn't even say I used to have because there are a lot of ways I'm still healing in that. But like that first daughter syndrome, Ada syndrome, hyper independence, all of that, right? And you don't want to ask people for help. You don't want to ever think like you need people, right? But it's something that I've definitely in a lot of ways unpacked and healed from, and getting better and better because it's a long road for any kind of healing. But, so I reached out, I'm like, I'm looking for a job, I'm looking for this, something that would be this. I was clear about what I was going for. And at the time, I knew I wanted to work in something that has to do with communication at the time. And I just started looking out for opportunities. I started putting myself out there, right? The job I eventually got at that time was something that I reached out to someone that was in an industry that I was interested in. And then I told her like, oh wait, I don't have much experience on this, but I know that I'm very hardworking and I can actually do this. I can put the work in if I need to. And yeah, like I just, this is my resume. I'm a first class graduate, blah, 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 all of that. I put that out there. She was like, oh, okay, it sounds good. That's interesting. Like I would definitely keep you in mind. And she ended up recommending me and referring me for a role to a HR practitioner. And I ended up, interviewing me and I got that role, right? And my life started changing from there, right? I'm not in that job. I left that job like 3 years ago right now, but it was one of the first steps to taking ownership of my life, right? Taking agency of my life, having agency over my life. I feel like sometimes like one of the things that we have to learn when it comes to changing our life is that there's no one coming to save you. There is nobody coming to save you. Even the well-meaning people, even people that your uncle, that your auntie, those people that you feel like you are depending on, they are not coming to save you. They can have good intentions for you, but you have to do the work yourself. You have to put yourself out there. You have to do the work to quote unquote save yourself. I'm a believer, so I know that at the end of the day, a lot of this is anchored on obviously faith and God. I believe that God also puts things in our way, right? Whether you believe in him or not, to also help you to find the life that you're looking for and help you find and help you to grow and all of these different things, right? But so I did that, and I remember that I was like, wow, like I can actually do this, right? I can actually do this. And I remember starting out the job, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I kept on getting like good reviews. Oh, this best this of employee of this, just getting I kept on getting like good like validation on the work that I was doing. I was like, wow, like I was building confidence in myself and competence. And it's funny because I didn't start out. I started out, and it was like I actually had like a managerial position, and so I had to grow faster than I had gained the experience of it because I kind of the job I had before that I still had a lot of like I had a lot of like would I say like I had because of I didn't have a lot of people that I was working with, so I was able to take on like a bigger position than probably I would have if I wasn't working in like a smaller firm and smaller company, right? So I had more responsibility than I normally had. But then this next job and this new job, right, I had a lot more responsibility. You know, I learned a lot from my line manager at the time. I learned a lot from her. You know, she was someone that did a lot of things that I also wanted to do. So I learned a lot from watching her do, because I learned a lot from watching, right? So I watched her, I would learn things from her, I would just do things, I would take things on, I would push myself, I would challenge myself to do things, right? And yeah, that was how I started to grow in my career, right? And you know, after that, like after I had stayed in that job for like almost 2 years, I had grown so much within that 2 years. Like I started doing a lot of things, leading projects that I had never led before, taking responsibilities that I'd never had before. And I was like, okay, this is what it feels like to be challenged, right? And another thing about like changing your life is that your new life will challenge you, right? I think a lot of times when we're trying to change our life, we're so comfortable with our comfort zones that we don't realize that, first of all, leaving our comfort zone, first of all, is uncomfortable. But beyond the discomfort of leaving your comfort zone, right, the new thing you're trying to do is not easy, right? Whether it's you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to do, nothing comes easy, right? And so you're going to be in you know, your new life would cost you your old one, like I said, right? And this is a quote from Brianna Wiest, actually. But also it will challenge you. So I had challenged myself in new ways. And within that challenge, I was able to see myself in a new lens. I'm like, okay, Kamsi, like, you did this, like, you are able to do this. You are capable of doing this. Let's do something else, right? And that is how confidence is built. I always say this, confidence is not something that you build by trying to be confident. Like there's a part of mindset that is a very, very big part, definitely. But a lot of confidence is built by stacking results, by doing things that reinforce the fact that you can actually do them. And that was what was happening in my life. I was doing things, I was like, wait, I'm actually able to do these things. The girl who used to sit down and think that I don't know if I'm capable, if I'm whatever it is, I was doing hard things. And I kept on doing hard things. And I kept on building confidence, right? And, you know, the rest they say is history. I kept on taking up opportunities, responsibilities, and everything like that, right? And I kept on, one thing I know that was very, 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 very key to my becoming and my growth and transformation that happened in my own life was believing that it was possible for me, doing the work, right? So faith without works is dead. Doing the work to sustain that belief, right? And then also allowing myself to catch up to the reality of who I now am. When you are trying to change your life, you're going to still have, I like to call it the cravings of the old self, the cravings of the person that you used to be. Sometimes, you know, laziness will knock at your door. Sometimes indiscipline would call your name, right? But you have to remind yourself of who you are now. What brought you to this place, the habits, the mindset, the work that brought you to this place. And you have to continue to do better. You can't even stay the same like you used to be. You have to continue to evolve. And that is also so important, right? Because the truth is that life rewards consistency, right? Sometimes you might not see the result of some of your hard work like immediately, but then it's like planting. You continue to plant seeds, and then one day the seed germinates and you're like, wow, look, a nice little flower. But then if you hadn't planted the seed, then however many weeks, months, years that it took for you to do that, you're not going to get to the point of flower in the first place. But if you did not believe, if you did not put in that work, if you did not plant that seed, if you did not water the seed, if you did not nourish it, if you were not consistent in all of that, you wouldn't see the flower. So a lot of times, like, the work takes time. You know, allow the process to go through you and for you to go through the process. Another thing I wanted to say on this is that if you want to change your life, don't think that your life or your past seasons are wasted, or what you have done is wasted. You might think that you might be a point that you feel like you haven't done the things you want to do, and you're like, I don't even know anything. I don't know where to start. Trust me, everything that you have done to that very point, there are things to learn from them, even if the lesson is what you should not be doing. That itself is a lesson, right? One of the things I learned in my pre-2020 phase was all the things I did not want to do, all the things I did not care about, all the things that mattered to me. I constructed my own ideology of success, what success looked like to me, so that I knew success to me mattered. It mattered for me to live a life that wasn't just work, but felt fulfilling, felt deeply nourishing. That I still had time to be with my friends and my family. That felt like there was a sense of harmony in my life, right? That I can do things that didn't just make money for me, but I also felt like I was doing something that actually mattered. That also mattered so much to me, right? And so it's very important but I know that the seasons where I was in those seasons where I was like, low and whatever it is, like those seasons were also part of the pruning and shaping of who I am today. And so wherever you are in your journey, no matter where you are, even if you've gone through your post 2020 phase, right? Like in my own case, and you're still trying to like grow and challenge yourself to do more, don't think that that this whatever scene you're in like is wasted. Like I'm working if I thought that particular job I was working in at that point in 2020 that was a waste of my time, I most likely would have been much sadder in that period of my life, because I felt like, oh, this was not happening where I wanted it to happen, right? But I was like, I'm going to do my work, what I need to do. I'm going to put my all into it at that time, what I can do, while also trying to improve my life, improve myself, read more, expose myself to new ways of thinking, build my capacity for imagination, for possibility. Because a lot of times we don't even realize that life has dealt with us such a blow that we have reduced our capacity for possibility, for imagination. We don't even think or believe that some things are possible for us anymore, right? We have allowed ourselves to be comfortable just being by the corner of our own lives. Like we're not the central piece of our life anymore, just a corner piece, right? And that was me, definitely. As I feeling like I was a side character in my own life. I didn't realize that I had the agency and the ownership to start to change my life, right? And I want to say something here, like this maybe might be a caveat as well, is that everyone's journey is different. Everyone's journey is completely different, right? What looks like success for me might not be success for you. And also, what looks like success for me might not also be the path you're supposed to walk on. And it doesn't make your path any less consequential or any less good. Just like, for example, there's some things that I aspire towards and that some I might never reach, and it's not as a curse, but maybe that's just not my journey, but that's not my story, and that's fine. But in the story that God has called me to live and to do and to be, I will be everything that God has called me to do and to be. I will not be everything. I will be everything that God has called me to do and to be, right? And that brings me to the point of alignment. If you want to change your life, it's very important that you are also thinking about being aligned with the will of God concerning you, right? And if you're not a believer, you might not be able to resonate with this as much. But to people who are listening to this and who are believers, you're not called to do everything, right? You're not called to be everything. You're not called to be all things to all men at all times. You're called to do and to be what God has called you to do and to be, right? And that means that sometimes, right, all your friends are traveling to Canada. You're not supposed to travel to Canada. Maybe all your friends are working in oil and gas. You're not supposed to work in oil and gas. You're supposed to work in media space. Maybe, right? It is not about being prescriptive. It's about being able to go back to the author of your own life and ask him why. Ask him what. Ask him how. Right. A lot of things that I'm doing right now, honestly speaking, I can't tell you that I could have prayed to do those things because I didn't even know the words of the prayer to pray to do those things. I just trusted and entrusted my life to God's hands. I asked God to direct me. I asked God to prune my desires, to give me desires that actually align with who he is and what he's trying to do for me. Right. And I started seeing the fruit of those things as time went on. Right. And so, yeah, that is really my story. And that is also the things I've learned when it comes to changing your life and all the things that come with that. So yes, guys, like that is a lot of what I've learned in this my short life so far. I wanted to just share that with you. Actually, something else that I wanted to add, actually, that I think is also very important when you want to change your life and don't know where to start. You have to remind yourself that you haven't seen all that you can be. That is such an important thing to remind yourself. You have to know that sometimes the life that you want to live, you've never seen it. You've never seen anybody around you have it. You've never seen anybody around you experience it. And that's how people even break things that they call generational patterns, right? Because sometimes what generational patterns really are that you have seen everybody around you do things in a particular way, and that's the only way you know how to do it. Whether it comes to how you save money, maybe everybody around you is completely bad with saving money, everybody ends up being broke, or everybody around you has horrible eating habits and it shows in different ways in which, health conditions and stuff like that, right? You might not have seen anybody around you live that life that you want to live, but it doesn't matter. All that matters is what you allow yourself to believe that it is possible for you. I know that this is something that people start to feel like, oh, this is just like motivational talk. I can only speak from my own life, right? The life that I have now, everything that I have now, I don't have a perfect life. There's still things that I'm aspiring to, right? But the life that I have now, genuinely, is a life that I prayed to have. Everything that 2020 Kamsi wanted to experience in her life, every single thing, I'm living in within them right now. Every single thing, I'm with no jokes. And there are things that, of course, you now start having new desires, new goals, new ambition, all of that. But everything that I wanted to have in my life 2020, I have them now. I had them even before now, but I have them right now. And every single thing as well that I desired to have, that I have in my life right now, most of them, I will not say every single thing in this part, but most of them, I saw it. I believed it for myself before I saw it happen. Before I saw it come to life, right? Some things God definitely exceeded my expectations in certain things, but I saw them first. I believed it was possible for me. Even though I didn't really, really see them growing up or around me, right? I have an amazing mother who's an amazing woman, has done so many amazing things for me and all, but there are a lot of things that I also do not see her do that I'm doing, right? And that's what parents want for their children. When their children to do more than they're able to ever do, right? I feel like a lot of things that I'm living right now are things that my mom would have dreamt of for herself, and I'm living within that now. And I'm so grateful. It never, ever, 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 I'm never, ever not in awe of the fact that, wow, this life that I'm living right now, like God actually, like this is the life that you were whispering to my mind all those years ago that this is possible for you, Kamsi. Like walk towards it. The life that you're asking for, walk towards it. Because a lot of time desire is actually your spirit trying to tell you that it is possible for you, right? And yeah, so that is just something I want to just share my story and my lessons that I've learned when it comes to changing your life. There's so much more to say here, but I think that, with other conversations that we're going to have on this podcast and even just generally forward, I would, share more about things that I've learned along my journey, and I continue to learn because I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers, but one thing that I know that I'm very, very responsible about is paying attention to what life is teaching me, right? And so if you're listening to this right now and you want to change your life, and you don't know where to start, a good place to start is to start. I know that sounds very obvious, but it wasn't that obvious to me all those years ago. And so I know I needed to hear that as well. I know I would have needed to hear that. Start somewhere. Start from where you are. Where you are is valid. Where you are there is so much inside of you. There's so much light that wants to come out of inside of you. If only you would believe. If 2020 Kamsi did not walk towards this life that she's living currently, she would not have it. Point blank, period. If she did not believe it, if she did not work towards it, she would not have it. She would probably still be living and working a mediocre job that she did not appreciate and living a life that she did not even want, right? And so this life that you want, it will cost you the life that you have right now. But you were made for it. You were made for it. That's why you even want it in the first place. You were actually made for it. And so believe that. Work it out. Stop running. And so, guys, that's all I wanted to share in this episode. And I hope that this is encouraging for someone that's listening to this. And as per usual, I want to end this episode with a journal prompt for you to reflect on. And today's journal prompt is, why are you running from the life you say you want? And just like I did that how many years ago, I want you to sit with that. Write honestly from your heart, from the depths of your heart, the things that you're afraid of, the fears. Interrogate those fears, confront those fears, respond to those fears, and start walking out in the life that you are able to live one step at a time. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. Love you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in my very next episode. Bye.